in the previous video, we talked about what a co-constructed learning environment looks like. And we also briefly covered on the role of the educator in this environment. I think we should elaborate on that a little bit more. Lena, what do you think is the role of the educator in a co-constructed environment?
I think the most important thing about the role of the educator is to really recognize that children are the ones who can drive their own learning journey. So the educator has a role to sort of step back and allow them to take that process themselves and give them that sense of I can, and I can do this for myself. I think supporting that sense of curiosity and wonder, so being able to share that and show some genuine enthusiasm for what they are doing in the process is really important, because we learn from the adults and the people around us. If they find this fun and interesting, then maybe I find it fun and interesting too. I think that also a really important part is to develop that reflective thinking practice. And I'm just trying to think of an example here, and I consider a moment a few weeks ago with my daughter and my son, who were playing with a helium balloon that had sort of, deflated to that halfway point where it hangs around in the middle of the room. And my son, who's 5, said to me, I want to make it, go back up to the roof. And I said, how do you think that might happen? And he said, I'm going to cut off the string. And I said, that's an interesting idea. I turned to my daughter, who's 8, and I said, what do you think might happen when we cut off the string? And she says, I think it's going to fall to the floor. And I went, that's really interesting. Let's see what happens. So off they go, and they get their scissors and they cut the string, and sure enough, the balloon flies away. And the best part about this, I just loved watching my daughter's face, because in an instant she went, oh, and I said, Eleanor, what happened? And she goes, it's flown away. And I said, why did you think that it was going to fall to the floor? And she said, every time I've seen a balloon before without a string, it's been on the floor.
Right.
Yeah. So she's already, and so this is another important part of the role of the educator, is to understand where each individual child is, that prior knowledge that you were talking about, that prior competency, and to be able to support the next level, not turn them into quantum physicists at age 3. Yeah.
So providing this environment is really important, right? And I think it's a beautiful example also for a co-constructed environment, because you children are allowed and feel encouraged to discover and to find questions and answers for themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Haley, do you want to add to that, the role of the educator?
Well, I think what brought it home to me was when Lena said that adults are allowed to be enthusiastic too.
So important, isn't it? That we kindle our own curiosity.
I think it's about roles. Allowing children to take the role as a leader or the role of an educator, to learn from the children. That is an incredible amount of self-worth and efficacy for children. And also because if we're going to view the child as a competent, capable person, we've got to view ourselves as competent, capable people as well. And we are allowed to be enthusiastic. We are allowed to have our own enthusiasms as well, and we are allowed to share them with the children.
And we're allowed to learn new things. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but I'm sorry, that's not true. We're constantly capable of changing our brains and learning new things.
Well, let's face it, none of us are ever going to know as much about dinosaurs as the average 5-year-old child. So really, we can learn an incredible amount, especially how to pronounce things.
And I feel, being a teacher myself, that these practices really gave me so much freedom and more room to breathe, because in the traditional teaching, we always feel like we have to provide everything. We have to know everything. But we don't. In the early childhood space, we know everything we need to know about STEM. We know more than enough to work with young children. And yes, we can just get carried away.
And isn't it great to be able to ask that question why and not have the answer, and actually genuinely ask the question alongside the children?
And discover things together.
Yes.